You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome to yet another fine, fantastic, out-of-this-world 4 3/4-star edition of your NXT Audio Report. My name is Emerson Whitner. I am here through AngryMarks.com and WrestlingOutsiders.com, here to bring you the good, the bad, the ugly, and the other of WWE NXT this week. Now, I should point out that Stevie J and I sat down in a conference room this week, and I told him I had it up to here with doing these NXT reports. And he and I came to an agreement for this week where all I had to do was review the very first match on the television program. And so, with that said and done, here I am to review the very first match that happened on the television program. So the show kicked off with NXT General Manager William Regal coming to the ring. Mr. Regal was angry at Baron Corbin for attacking Austin Aries last week. He would have suspended Corbin, but Aries asked him not to, and instead made Aries versus Corbin at NXT TakeOver Dallas. The announcers let us know that later on tonight, it'll be American Alpha versus the Vaudevillains in a number one contenders match, and also Bayley and Asuka would be sports entertaining in a tag team match. Playa. Spoiler alert, neither of those matches happen, because in my joy of trying to only review one match on NXT this week, we got the NXT episode where the entire episode was, in fact, one match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match for the number one contendership to the NXT title, Samoa Joe versus Sami Zayn. Does anyone remember, I guess it's been almost a decade now, when TNA still had 1 hour, and they did Kurt Angle, Christian Cage, and Rhino in a 3-way dance, and it featured interference by about 20 people. This was not that. I know you're shocked that NXT and TNA are 2 different shows, but this did not feature 20 guys running out. This featured 2 men, Samoa Joe, Sami Zayn, both of them going to war to determine who gets to go on to a bigger war, and that is Finn Balor and the NXT title on Friday, April 1st, 2016 in Dallas. They showed Larry Zbyszko, Mauro Ranallo, Adam Jones of the band Tool, Michael Hayes, Sasha Banks, and Hideo Itami all sitting ringside to watch the show, and they all looked happy to be there, except for Hideo Itami, who must sit there every week and realize that Finn Balor is getting his NXT title reign because he managed to get a freak injury last May. This match was set up first in January, and when they had a triple threat match with Baron Corbin, which ended in a double submission. It was then followed up by a one-on-one match, which ended in a double pin. So here we are, 2 out of 3 falls. One of these men must be called winner. One of these men must be called loser. And I want to point out, I don't read spoilers. I knew Joe was winning because I happened to see the incredibly awesome card for TakeOver Dallas. So I knew at the end of the day, Joe was going to be the number one contender. However, I didn't actually know this match was going to be an entire hour long. However, I got a feeling when Samoa Joe came out, Sami Zayn came out, and then before the ring announcer introduced the match, they went to commercial break. That one little thing, suddenly a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, oh my God, they're going an hour. And they started slow. Even slower than the match that they had a few weeks ago. Neither man had taken the advantage, both men grappling and angling to be the one to finally take over. Joe was using a headlock and putting all 280 pounds leaning down on Sami Zayn, while Sami was using his speed and technique to get out of it, using arm bars and hip tosses to take Joe down. Joe took over during the first commercial break during the match, using a jumping elbow drop and then a back elbow right to the mouth. Joe at one point used the face wash kick, and Sami Zayn had to stop and check to make sure his nose was still attached to his face. They did a move, kind of looked scary there for a second, where Samoa Joe looked like he was going for a flapjack. However, at the last second, Sami Zayn flipped over, nearly landed on his head, and they turned it into somehow a belly-to-belly overhead suplex. Zayn made his comeback, was able to get out of a muscle buster, but immediately got kicked in the head. Zayn at this point was just taking a beating. And this is where the match was getting brilliant, because he would get to his feet, hit a single punch or kick to get the fans like, oh my god, Zayn's making his comeback, and then get slammed down. The booking of this match was brilliant, because WWE does this kind of thing a lot, where the babyface gets beaten down and then makes his big return, or his big comeback, but it's not as good because they don't have sometimes people in the ring the caliber of Sami Zayn and Samoa Joe. Joe just beat on Zayn from head to toe, all over the ring, all over the ringside area, and Sami Zayn kept crawling, kept scratching, kept dragging to his feet. Zayn would get small bursts of offense, like when Zayn sent Joe flying out of the ring and hit his sitting acai moonsault to the floor. The first fall went over 20 minutes. Zayn went for a Blue Thunder Bomb, Joe shifted his weight, fell on top for a 2 count, and after an exciting series of counters, Joe hit his corner Uranagi, and finally getting that first fall with the Muscle Buster. We went to commercial, came back to commercial with the second fall beginning, with Samoa Joe flying across the ring and going for another Muscle Buster, but Zayn blocked it. Joe continued the beating he was giving Zayn until Zayn came back with a series of headbutts and a missile drop kick. Those headbutts actually gave Samoa Joe the Crimson Mask. To be honest, it was more of like a Crimson Trickle because it was like a little cut right near his eyebrow. But still, Joe, seeing the blood, became more vicious. Zayn almost actually won with a crucifix at one point when Joe missed a knee drop. At this point, Joe was setting up to go for countouts, and there was a shifting in the match each time. First, the match was beginning and Joe was going for pinfall after pinfall, and then that didn't work. At this point now, Joe was going for countouts, and he kept knocking Zayn down. He kept knocking Zayn down outside the ring for the countout. He hit the STO on the floor, but Zayn would just get back in the ring, crawl and drag himself back into the ring. And Zayn used all of his energy to get back into the ring and fired into yet another comeback, hitting a huge suplex and a flip dive over the top rope, and then finally hitting his STO. He locked on the Koji clutch, and Samoa Joe had to tap out, and it was tied at 1. They announced the third fall, even though there was a good 15-20 minutes of TV time left. They announced that the other matches would be rescheduled for another time. As Joe kicked out of a Blue Thunder Bomb, Zayn hit a beautiful sunset flip power bomb, also for a 2 count. And then Sami Zayn even broke out his big move, where Joe was outside the ring, Sami Zayn is outside the ring, and Sami Zayn takes a running start, jumps up over the bottom rope through the other side of the ring, and hooks Joe's head with the Tornado DDT. Joe blocked the Haluva kick, turned it into the powerbomb, which turned into the Boston Crab, turned that into the crossface, and Joe pulled back Sami Zayn's other arm. So at this point, Sami Zayn, both of his arms are pulled firmly behind his back. Sami Zayn, who just came back from a big shoulder injury last year, but Zayn was able to kick, and he was able to maneuver, and he got his foot on the bottom rope. We're 40 minutes in, and at this point, Joe shifted from countout to knockout, using all of his strikes to knock Zayn down. After this brutal match, Zayn would crawl and drag himself up, and he'd get to his feet, and Joe would knock him down again. And Zayn would have to get back to his feet just to be knocked down again. And then Zayn got his one last gasp. Zayn got up on the count of 2, and he was on fire. Sami Zayn went running after Joe, and Sami Zayn put on the Coquina Clutch. Sami Zayn using Samoa Joe's own submission hold against him, and Joe managed to get his foot on the rope. But when Joe got to his feet, Sami Zayn hooked him and threw him into the corner with the exploder suplex. And then came time for the finish. Sami Zayn was feeling it. The crowd is on their feet, jumping up and down, nearly wetting themselves in anticipation. Sami Zayn went for the haluva kick, but Samoa Joe sidestepped him. Sami Zayn crashed into the corner. Samoa Joe locked on the Coquina Clutch, locked his legs around Sami Zayn's body, and Sami Zayn, just an arm length away from the ropes, so close, so very, very close, as he's reaching out to grab it, his arm falls, and trying again, and his arm just keeps falling, and Sami Zayn's losing energy, and Sami Zayn, inches away from a rope break, could not make the ropes. Inches away from the rope break, he passed out. There would be no rope break. Instead, Samoa Joe wins. Samoa Joe is your number 1 contender. It took 3 matches over 5 weeks, and even then it took 45 minutes to get it done. But we do know, April 1, Dallas, Texas, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, the NXT title, 1-on-1. Alrighty, so that's it from this week. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you again in 7 days.
You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.